Namaste. Good afternoon. What a day for a good laugh. Every day. Have a happy day. Anyway, well, been kind of on a fun part of my journey recently, and I just wanted to share some things with you that may hopefully can help me. I think that all I can basically do is share what I went through with very little concern of who or what it's intended for. It's my experience, and I'm just sharing it in the spirit of sharing it. And then if you can grasp any little bit of this, and at this point I want to say that as any presentation on this topic, a lot is borrowed. There's nothing new under the sun after all, and I just want to encourage you to reuse anything that I might say that might be helpful, because I certainly have, in the course of my studies, incorporated many things, and when I find a clever way that somebody says that, I like to share it, and I try to recognize that it's not mine, but I just want to have this caveat here that there's nothing new. Everything that I have to share is old. But what may be new is that how I put it together, how I experienced it. That may be new to you. So I wanted to talk today basically about kind of cultivation of grace and how important. This is a starting point. If you learn to be graceful. I remember thinking at an early age that, of course, I want to live well, but also I wanted to die well. And that might sound a little bit strange, but some of my experience, my limited experience with death, it's as I age, of course, there's becoming more and more prevalent in my life. Friends are dying. But it's a state of grace that you can begin cultivating without any information, without any knowledge, without any teacher, without any guru. Conduct yourself with grace. Cultivation of grace. And a benefit of this was you begin the process of this journey, which is to see beyond your veils. We obscure the truth. We are sleeping. And this is what awakening truly means. Awakening from the dream. Awakening from the dream of forgetfulness and entering into the realms of remembrance. See beyond these veils. Okay. Now, as a consequence of this grace, it seems like I want to talk about two. I'm going to read to you two. One is mine, or it feels like mine anyway. Awakening as a grace that happens of itself is a grace. Awakening is a reward for living, waking from the slumber. Is the key to it is a grace. It happens spontaneously, happens of itself. Now, here's another, that's one take. And here's another take from my buddy Adyashanti. I say my buddy because I did sit with him for satsang once, 25 years ago, when the first year of his teachings. But he feels like a buddy. Sorry to be presumptuous, Adya, in all due respect. Enlightenment is a destructive process, says Adya. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seen through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagined to be true. Pretty strong words. So look at mine. We started with awakening is a grace that happens of itself. It's a reward Sort of. It's a consequence of living in a state of grace. And now all of a sudden it's a battle. So which is it? And this is the great quandary, the recognition that reconciling these, and I recognize these two apparent polar opposites needed to be reconciled and needed to incorporate them in a one body of understanding, because it's necessary, not only necessary but inevitable in the journey of waking from the dream. So I was looking for answers while watching my mind jumping for the answers. And this is, I just borrowed this because my mind was jumping for the answers like a monkey picking up bananas. I just loved it. Kind of, let's add some humor to the mix. And that's somebody else's words, it's just a monkey picking up bananas. Yeah. But to go back to that reconciliation, it's a process that happened. It's something that you need to experience. I experienced, and from what all my insights tell me, that we all must learn to reconcile these diametrically opposed events. Happiness, sadness, desire, not undesired line. Tell the truth. And I want to talk about the stages I went through. I call them stages of appreciation. And I've talked a lot recently about questions, and I have a few people that look to me for some answers, and sometimes I have more patience with questions than others. And that's because the ambiguity of questions. But here I found someone else's words again about the beauty of questions. If you have questions, ask them. It's much better than pretending you don't, or that there is no you to ask anything. You can't fake awakening. The questions will end when they end. Okay, all those with questions, happened to me, and I shared it when I just didn't have it. When I had a final chance when I finally had a chance to be at 60 plus with the only teacher I had in the flesh, who didn't speak English, who only spoke Chinese. And opportunity to ask questions is when I discovered that, indeed, I'd run the questions, the day of questions. I had no questions. And here's some hints that might help along the way. You need to learn to embrace the understanding that the truth doesn't free you, it's not the truth. If you feel burdened, you can feel challenged, that's different, but if you feel burdened, you don't feel the lightness in your heart. You don't feel that your mind is being replaced by light, which is something that will occur when what you're hearing is truthful. But if it's the truth doesn't set you free, it's not the truth. And so I wanted to talk about what happens on the so-called path to awakening. And just recently I read that awakening from, it's a duality, right? Awakening from, as if being awake and asleep is two different things, but it's again the reconciliation, the oneness, the non-duality. So the path to isness, I borrowed that from somebody again, and I like it because the business of isness. I just think that's cute. That's me. I put the business of isness, and that's our business to be. Thou art that. Or let's change that. That thou art. I am. I am that I am. It's all talking about this isness. And along the way, one day you're going to wake up and you'll you feel really free because you realize that that's your natural condition, that you've always been free. You walked through a prison door that didn't exist. No, it's okay here. You had a major revelation, boom. But it's a minor insight made all the difference. And I want to talk about a minor insight that I experienced. I always searched for clarity. And my whole 33 years of Zen practice was predicated on this clarity. And that was the clarity of thinking, clarity of seeing through the pond to the very bottom, as through the still waters. This is what I was taught of clarity, and somewhere along the way, I understood that this is not clarity. The clarity I was seeking was purpose, and my purpose had always been clear. Front stage, my purpose, clarity had always been mine, clarity of purpose. My purpose was to remember the forgotten, to get our birthright, our isness, our being, our soul connection. So it's like being in the Rinzai Center and waiting for a program to start. And we would sit quietly, letting peace naturally arise, only to realize that this practice is the ultimate goal. Sit quietly and let peace naturally arise. And there is the ultimate goal. So, I sought clarity. I understood what clarity really meant, clarity of purpose. But along the way, I was given the gift of equanimity, to be the same in all given situations, conditions, and the greatest gift of all